All right, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So today we are joined by Souly Switch, is what I know you as, but would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, for sure, man. So again, yeah, you're right. Our name is Souly Switch. That's the name of our actual channel here. We stream on Rumble and on Twitch. We make a couple YouTube videos and stuff. But my name is Bronson. This is my wife Connor, and together we make up Souly Switch. Man, we're just a super happy married couple with no problems in the world. We never argue. We're perfection on 2 feet.
That sounds like me and my
But
wife.
it's
Never argue. It's all
yeah,
rainbows and
never, man.
butterflies. Perfect.
No, it's like a Disney movie all the time. It's just amazing. So, but it's a pleasure to finally meet you, man. I came into one of your streams one day off a whim. I can't exactly remember how I found out about you or discovered you, but I came into one of your streams and I was immediately impressed by you
You
because
made me watch some of it, didn't you?
I
Because
did.
I was like, I as soon as I saw his face, I was like, I recognize him, but I don't know where.
Yeah, I did because I
Awesome.
was like, hey, um, I believe in this guy. I just as soon as you started talking about being an author, I was like, oh, you know what? I can. His passion is contagious. I can see it through the room. You know, what I mean, you could feel it through the camera, and I was like, check this guy out, man. There's something special about this dude, and so I was really glad that you had asked us to come on board and hang out with you one night. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you guys here. And kind of one of the reasons I want to start doing something like this is that, like we live in a world clearly that is dark, man, and it has a lot of negativity and a lot of just, stuff that might black pill some people. And I wanted to create a space where just regular everyday believers can come on and kind of just share their testimony and what God has ultimately done in their life to be a blessing to other people. That's really just my aim with this, is to glorify him through your stories. And I'm glad that you guys were able to carve out some time to join me tonight. I definitely appreciate it, and appreciate you guys doing what you do through gaming. I think that's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, we appreciate you having us on. It's always cool to meet other Christians and be involved with other creators like that. That was something when I first started streaming to Rumble. I was very passive on there. It was a place for me basically just to store VODs more than anything
Yeah.
else. And yeah, I didn't really know too much. I had gone into a couple of streams, and as much as I like a lot of the people that I've met on Rumble, a lot of times I was like, man, it's going to be hard for us doing like not necessarily family friendly streams, but these
Yeah.
Christian oriented type of streams, and then raiding into a bunch of F bombs and whatnot, which is
Yeah.
like, I don't care how you speak or what you do, but you know, your birds of a feather flock together type of thing. And when you have an audience who's interested in one thing, sometimes they're not super happy when you dump them into another type of environment. And
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely get that. I actually was just talking to a buddy about this, about being very intentional about who I rate out. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm not,
Hmm.
like I get, there's some Christians that are a little bit more liberal or whatever, but I'm not rating out anybody that's like promoting drug use or,
Right.
dropping F bombs left and right. Like I just don't feel comfortable doing that, like I have a certain audience I want to cultivate. I
Yeah,
don't,
exactly.
yeah, don't want to foster that at all.
Yeah,
I have a line in the
exactly.
sand.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to do. And like I said, there's no shade towards any of those
No.
guys. They may have a more, what's the word, more opportunity to reach people that I won't because I'm not open to that type of environment. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, every part of the body has a function, and it's not for me to, argue with those other parts of the body and what they can and cannot do. But as for me in my house, you know what I
Yep.
mean? This is, kind of the way that we're moving over here. And there are some other Christian streamers who might see us as a little risque as well. I heard somebody on Twitch say, this is just one person in particular. They're like, oh, this is pretty controversial, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, oh, no, 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 Souly Switch, they get pretty controversial over there. And but for Rumble, we're rather PG.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what
I
I
would say
mean?
Rumble, I'm definitely PG on Rumble, but I would say I'm not afraid of talking about hot button issues at all. Like
Sure.
that's not an issue
Yeah.
for me. It's just
Mm-mm.
behavior wise. I don't want to do
Right.
any like bad behavior or any behavior that I'm just not comfortable crossing a line on.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have kids. How many kids do you have?
Just one for right now.
It's a handful, that first kid, man.
It sure is, man.
Yep. hopefully we want to have at least two more, but she is 10 months old now, and she's just ready to go off to college. She's ready to start driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a really big 10-month old.
Is she sleeping
Very
through the
grown.
night? You guys getting sleep?
Sometimes.
Good.
But
Hmm.
a lot of times I have to be with her, like or at least nearby, and she'll go back to sleep. Sometimes if she wakes up, she will just lose her mind. But there's a lot of times she will sleep a really good stretch.
Yeah.
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 My firstborn, she was difficult, but but she calmed down a little bit. And my secondborn was a force to be reckoned with. She still is. She is tough, man. She's one tough cookie. She didn't
Oh,
sleep through the night until like 7 months. It was rough. It was
Wow.
rough. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Um,
Before you're a parent, you hear somebody say 7 months, and you're like, 7 months. But when you do that, like 31 times seven, that's pretty rough, man. That
yeah,
that
yeah.
can soak some energy right out of you.
And there's so much things about parenthood where you think like when you're single. Like I had this buddy that I'd want to hang out. Bro, why can't you hang out? He's like, oh no, I have my kids. I'm like, bro, you always say that. That's just an excuse, bro. Like come hang. Now that I have kids, I'm like, oh, I totally understand what he was talking about. Like I
Yeah,
can't
man.
do anything
Yeah.
now.
Right.
So
And even when you do have the time, a lot of times something else gets in the way. The grass needs to be cut, or
yep,
it's like, dude, I would much rather just sit here with my wife and stare at the ceiling for a minute and just get my bearings back in, because that baby's ready for round three when it
yeah.
wakes up. And so I need to rest up and wait until that moment.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, I guess tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I'm kind of curious to hear you guys' story.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it all started back in 1997 when I got born. No, I'm just kidding. I really, everybody's story is a little bit different, right? Like, we all have this amazing path that we take that leads us to Christ, and it's incredible, because for many of us, it all starts in different places. You know what I mean? Nobody ever starts in the same absolute location. So, really, for me, I was born and raised in church. When I was 13, 14 years old, I was drumming for a youth group, and uh, was traveling with the youth group, and we were doing concerts, and I was always there, man. I was always involved in church, and was always pretty much what's the word I'm looking for, pretty zealous in my ideas and opinions and whatnot. But really, the story starts to take more shape, as I guess a lot of people's does, when you get a little older
Yeah.
and you get out of that nest and you start to see more of the world, things that you knew existed but hadn't experienced until you come of age to do so. And I come from a broken home. My dad had 7 kids, my mom had 5, so there were a lot of us,
Wow.
and because of that, there was a lot of things that I saw in my lifetime. I saw a lot of police officers and a lot of things coming through. Iron, thank you so much for the raid, man. I
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Iron.
You're very, very kind. Thank you,
Hope
sir.
your stream was good.
Yes, good to see you guys. So tonight we're hanging out with our buddy Ryan on RCAM. He's a great streamer on Rumble. You guys definitely make sure you check him out. And tonight we're going to be going over some of our testimonies, talking about Jesus Christ and how we got to that place. So thank you guys so much for showing up. I appreciate it. But yeah, so I was no stranger to crime. I was no stranger to drugs and stuff like that. It was all around my household. A lot growing up. It wasn't unusual to see it. My grandfather was a con man. He worked for the Siegel family. You can Google that. You can Google who Bugsy Siegel is. My grandfather cleaned his house until the day that he died.
Wow.
And my father was the guitarist for Johnny Paycheck. If you can Google that too, you can see my dad playing on stage with him. And so my dad was always on the road, and because he was involved with Johnny Paycheck, he was involved with the Hells Angels.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so there was a lot of that stuff around when I was a kid. And they did a great job of shielding you from it. But children have great context clues; they can figure things out. And most children, I think, are little detectives. Are always trying to figure out what this secret is that
Oh,
the older
yeah.
people are trying to hide from us. And so it didn't take long before, eventually I was 13, 14 years old, and I was starting to get involved in all that stuff. And, it starts off small vandalism and petty theft and whatnot. And before you know it, you're selling, illegal firearms or selling drugs. And, it just kind of becomes this thing, and it's a part of your life. But my turnaround really started to happen when I got involved in the martial arts. I'd
Okay.
always wanted to take martial arts, and my dad hooked me up with one of his friends. And so I went into the school, and I started to see adults with normal lives, with good lives. And I hadn't really seen a whole lot of that before, people that were encouraging me to do well, and they were smiling with me, and nobody had an ego. Nobody was tough. It didn't run on prison rules. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
wasn't always, kill or be killed type of mentality. There was genuine kindness there and encouragement there. And even though I'd been in church my whole life, I'd never quite experienced it like this. You know, this was the first time I'd ever been in a place where I really cared about what my peers thought about me and what other people thought about me. And I began to look for the approval of, other older men, whereas most of my life I was looking for the approval of idiots,
Yeah, I
people
mean,
that
that's
were,
the case when
you
you're in
know,
high school, man, and you're going through it. Yeah,
hmm
you're in a situation where you want the approval of your friends, and
yeah.
more often than not, you choose friends that might not be the best influence.
Yeah, exactly. And they weren't, because like I said, coming from a broken home, I'm often looking as a child. I didn't realize it at the time. Looking back now, I know I was looking for some type of man to be that father figure, And thankfully, by the grace of God, my instructor was put into my life, and so he and I spend time together every single week. We talk now, and it's I've been under his wing for 13 years,
Wow.
and yeah, he's an amazing guy. I mean, just a total godsend for me in my life, and taught me how to be a man, taught me how to be a husband, taught me how to be a business owner, just a homeowner, and everything that you would expect a dad to teach you. He taught me those things throughout, the last 13 years or so,
So he was like
and
a
so I was
Johnny
very blessed.
Lawrence to you, just not as messed up, right?
Yes, yeah, 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 exactly right. It's more like he was kind of like my Mr. Miyagi type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's sick.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's a rarity, and that's why I think I can stand pretty firm on that. I think it's a blessing from God because most people don't really get that mentor who's beyond just your profession or your hobby. He really stepped in on so many other things.
Even
Um,
just cultivating discipline from doing martial arts is a good thing for a man to do, because you're
oh yeah.
learning to discipline your body and you discipline your mind, and that's actually good for young men. It's really good for young men.
hmm
They need it.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone should at least do something like that. You know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily have to be martial arts. If you want to be a weightlifter or a bodybuilder
Yeah.
or whatever, archery, pottery, whatever. If you can find a craft and really stick to it, it does something to you.
Yeah.
When you are pursuing mastery in any place of your life, all of a sudden you begin to broaden your horizons on what you see in other things. After I had been in martial arts for a while, I went to go see this little children's play they were putting on, and it was on ice. And I saw these two twins doing this figure skating routine, and I'll never forget. You know, I was a person who had been, I've been arrested a couple of times, and I'm not like a murderer, dude. I'm not like a cold hearted killer or
No.
anything, but you get kind of callous to certain stuff. And I watched these two twins do this figure skating routine. I just started bawling in tears, and I really don't think that would have happened without the martial arts in my life. And so, all these things are happening, you know what I mean? And by the age of 18, I was really enjoying psychedelics at that age. You know what I mean? I was really enjoying acid and mushrooms and, smoking all the time, drinking all the time and stuff. And I sat in the car one night, and I, uh, I was starting to come to this, apex, this peak of conflict, if you will. I was watching all these documentaries on Netflix, long before it was cool, looking into aliens and resurrection and Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism, and was hanging out with witches and learning about Kundalini and cheese and chakras and all this. I was very interested in that type of stuff, and was um, spent about a year or two really hanging out in those circles and trying to get my hands on that. And with the use of, drugs and alcohol as an accelerant, was, experiencing these out of body
Yeah.
experiences, and, really trying to pursue something spiritual, as I felt like I hadn't seen that in the church, even though I went to like, hyper evangelical, non-denominational, sometimes Pentecostal churches as a kid. I'd seen people hooping and hollering and raising their hands, and I'd been a part of all of that.
Yeah.
Speaking in tongues, et cetera, et cetera. I've been a part of all of that, but I wanted to see more. I wanted to see this, healing. I wanted to see, fire from heaven. I really wanted. I was like, where is the power? I was looking around me in a world that seemed broken. Through the lens of a young man who wants answers to a world he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And I saying, why, why is it like this? And so, with all that put together, I was sitting in the, driver's seat of this Ford Explorer, and I was sitting there talking to God, and it's like, what what is the truth to all this? That's what one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Pontius Pilate, when he replies to Jesus, says, what is truth?
Do you
And every
see
time
this?
I Yeah, I do see that. Yeah. That's him in Pilate, right? Yeah.
And that's
I
funny.
see that. That is funny.
That's my favorite
That's so
painting.
funny. I did not see that back there, I promise. But that's one of my favorite verses, is when he says, what is truth? And it always sticks out to me. And I take it a little out of context, of course, but I apply it to my own life, when I sit there and was like, what is this? Because I've felt these things. I've felt the powers of the Kundalini and of these chakras and of these stones. And I've felt how overwhelming these drugs can make me feel. And, you know, in comparison to what I've felt in church, these things seem stronger. And so what is all this? And I had all these questions about planets and et cetera, you know what I mean? And it hit me, man. It's like I didn't hear an audible voice, but it just hit me really, really hard, where I was like, if I was in God's shoes, thank God I'm not, but if I was in his shoes and some 18-year-old kid came up to me with this much attitude and this much question, I would say, you want these questions to these grand answers, and you haven't even read my book yet.
Hmm.
You've been going to this building for 18 years since you were born. You've been on worship teams, and you've been involved in youth groups, and you've done Operation Shoebox, and you've evangelized in grocery stores and everywhere else in the world, and you've fought tooth and nail with atheists and Catholics and whatever else out there on beliefs that, quite honestly, you don't even understand yourself. You've just mimicked what you've heard a preacher on a stage say.
Hmm.
And it hit me so hard. I was like, you know what, man? Tonight I start the book. I'm reading tonight. And I did it. I read it cover to cover, and it changed everything. I mean, just changed my whole perspective on everything. Information was just so special. Just looking at things that I didn't know was in the book. I had no idea about animal sacrifice. I had no idea that the 12 tribes of Israel ended up making up 12 locations in Israel. They were like their own little city states, and just all these things. Is like, dude, I had no idea this even happened in the book. And um, it began to cultivate this incredible desire, this hunger for more than what I had ever experienced before.
Yeah.
And I look back on that prayer at 18, and though I'm really glad for what came from it, it's like vinegar to the tongue. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can't believe I used to be so arrogant about
Yeah.
this. But it's a young man. That's what we do, right?
Yeah, man,
Um,
it's really funny. Honestly, it's like very similar to like my story a little bit, because like
mhm.
I did drugs. I did some of the same drugs, man, and I had all these questions, and I was angry at God though, at this
Yeah.
season of my life. And what I realized though is that by doing these drugs, it's like, yeah, you can have these experiences, but you're taking like a back door. You're taking the
Right.
back
Right.
door, and
Right.
you better be careful about what you open up when you go through the back door, because it
Hmm.
does come with negative consequences, and I experienced that. I'm hoping you didn't, but I'm assuming probably a little bit you did. And
Sure.
that stuff is challenging and difficult to navigate too, because it like messes with your mind. A lot of people talk
Oh man.
about psychedelics, and it's just like the cool things you see, and that's what you think, but it's so much more than that. And it comes with thoughts and just complete shifts in perception, sometimes really, really bad. And it turns on you in a really dark way. And
Yeah.
that was my experience with them, man. And fortunately for me, God cut through the darkness and was able to speak to me even in the midst of this some of this stuff. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it started with if you're familiar with psychedelics, you probably know the term the ego death,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it started with, was the ego death. And I was like, hey, this is a great thing. This is making me nicer and more compassionate and empathetic and sympathetic towards everything, right? You just become so nice. Um, and you, yeah, everybody knows the term, you chase the dragon, and you just continue trying and trying and trying, and it comes close. You know what I mean? You can come close to catching the tail sometimes, but it's never really the real deal. But it definitely did open up a lot of doors to things. And I think something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, although I'm sure I can't be the only one that's experienced it, is something that I've kind of coined like a spiritual trauma, if you will. That when you're doing these things and you're also kind of experimenting, if you will, with other religions or trying to test around the other spiritual side of things, is that, a lot of meditation that comes along with that ends up becoming kind of like this spiritual muscle memory. And so when I first tried to get back into praying to, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, um, I had a hard time using the proper prayer muscle, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I was using the prayer muscle that I've been building up over the years. And because of that, it was hard to differentiate the two. It made it really difficult. It's like I was trying to call on God, and anytime I would start to lean into the exercises and practices that I didn't associate with Him.
Yeah.
And it would create these weird issues. And honestly, I'm not really doing the greatest job of describing it, but it made it hard, man. It was so hard. It's like um here's a good example, I think, is that, in Hosea, God calls the children of Israel adulterers, right?
Mhm.
Because they've cheated on me with these other gods.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like if you cheat on your wife and then you come home and you try to hug her and kiss her.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like, but I imagine it's a weird feeling. I imagine it's like, this feels so fake.
Yeah.
I know what I've done, I know what I did. And that was what I was really missing. And to be honest with you, Ryan, I was missing that for probably another 8 years.
Mm.
Even though a lot of those prayer muscles for God had been developed and started to grow, and the relationship grew, and knowledge really grew because I was in the Word all the time. But it was around the second time that I'd read the Bible completely, all the way through, that I was I'd actually, believe it or not, was listening to the audio Bible, and I was listening to it every day while I was at the grocery store. I was working at a Whole Foods during 2020 because I lost my job. I'm a martial arts instructor, and during 2019, I got up to having two schools, and I was running two schools at the same time, two tournament teams. And for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, I felt really good.
Yeah, that's
I felt like I was
impressive,
really
man.
killing it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
awesome.
felt great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I had a lot of help, but it felt great. And then 2020 came, and being a young man with didn't understand anything about money, I just didn't have the margins, and everything fell apart. During that time, I lost everything. I lost the home I was living in. I lost my schools, and everything just fell apart. And here I am at this grocery store, and I'm just angry at everybody because I felt like it wasn't my fault. You know what I mean? It's just super mad. And the only thing I could do was listen to this audio Bible. And I normally would turn on James because it was the perfect amount of time for me to get into my car, make it to work. I could start James as soon as I cranked the car, and the second I got into the parking lot at work, the book of James would end, and it was just perfect.
Yeah.
And I had longer hair back then, so I could hide my headphones at work, and so I'd keep a headphone in. And one day I heard this book on, and I didn't know what it was. And even though I'd read it, it just listening to it was like I was hearing it with brand new ears. And I was hearing these things about this priesthood of Melchizedek and how there's no need for another sacrifice, and all these things about differentiating who Christ is compared to other angels and where he came from. And I was like, man, this guy is spitting. What is this? And I opened it up, it's just the book of
Yeah.
Hebrews. And I was like, well, I've read this before. But this is just hitting on a new level. And the more I listened, it was like, oh my gosh, I had never pieced these things together before. I'd never realized that when he's talking about, you will be a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, that it's quoting from the book of Psalms.
Yeah.
And then Sit thou by my right hand until my enemies have been made your footstool. And now everything is under him, but there is one more that is not under him, and that is death. And when that is done, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And then I went into Psalms and was listening to all this. I was like, oh my gosh, it just never hit me just how much emphasis they had put on Christ the Messiah, even way back in the Old
Yeah.
Testament. And I started just falling into this rabbit hole of connecting these quotes from the New Testament that when you're reading it, it takes you a long time to read it, right? You start in Genesis, you end in Revelation. The first time it took me 3 years to do it. You know what I mean? And so by the time you're in Hebrews, you forgot what you read in Psalms, right?
Yeah.
Little quotes here and there. But using the audio Bible, I was able to go through this and see all these quotes. And I was like, this book is beyond divine. This is insane, the levels of prophecy and reference and quotes that they're using
Yeah.
here. And I couldn't even sit still where I was when I was working. I just started to pace the grocery store, and everything just started to click in ways that I'd never, they just never clicked before, about this Passover lamb and what it represented, and the Feast of Tabernacles and the Exodus and how they're moving out, and it's just all these things just clicked and clicked and clicked. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It just overwhelmed me so much. I went into the bathroom at this grocery store and was just thinking about what this meant for me, and that I'd always known Christ died on this cross. I'd always known that he was, buried and resurrected and rose on the third day and went up into heaven to ascension and sat by the right hand of the Father. I could quote that because the
Yeah.
preacher on a stage told it to me, but I never felt it. I never understood what that really meant. And one thing that I used to do when I first started praying when I was a kid was I would just kind of say things, right? Oh, Heavenly Father, you're so great. You are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Thank you for your mercy and thank you for your grace and etc. But I didn't actually know what grace was.
Yeah.
I was just saying it. And when I went down this rabbit hole, all these things started clicking this day when I realized that, oh my gosh, I'm actually saved. It was just like I didn't realize it. Oh my God, I'm actually saved. Like this
Mm.
actually happened. And it's not by my own works. You know what I mean? It's just the fact that I have hope in this salvation.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite verses from Hebrews that says, the following of this law couldn't save anybody, but the bringing in of the better hope did. And it's when I realized that this hope is actually what is, sanctifying your soul, if you will, just knowing that your works aren't enough, but that hope in him, that faith through grace, is really what does this. And I just sat there in it's ironic in some ways. I sat there in the stall in a bathroom, like, most of my actions had been, and most of my life had been, is something that you should just flush down the toilet. And I sat there in the stall in the bathroom and just realized, oh my God, I'm actually saved. Holy
Mm.
cow. I actually have access to this, and I didn't have to meditate for it. I didn't have to take any drugs for it. Sadly enough, I had to lose my businesses and my home and everything else before I finally realized what was going on, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, man.
Mm.
So I think I was age 23, I think, when that happened.
That's
And
profound,
so,
man.
yeah, so it took 23 years for it to finally kick in. And after that, man, it was like, dude, I'm on fire now. You know what I mean? I went through the Bible again, and just like, there's just something special there, man. I just, my salvation, I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the same story, but for me, salvation was an experience. It was
Yeah.
something that was way stronger. If you remember what I said in the beginning, I felt like what I was doing in the darker arts was more powerful than what I was feeling in church, but this trumped it by all standards. It was way stronger than any drug I'd ever taken. It was insane, man. It was
Yeah.
just insane. So,
Yeah. Hold on.
yeah.
I just want to get to a comment real quick. Hey, KMD. Glad you're popping in, man. I hope you're having a good night. Um, yeah, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, you'd said something before that I think is really profound. As soon as you started talking about the priesthood and the order of Melchizedek, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's referencing Hebrews, and
Yeah.
it's really cool because a lot of people don't piece this together. Is that so? God divorces Israel, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, according to Old Testament law, the only way, or at least the only way to I guess get married again is
Yes.
if the spouse dies. And then
Yes.
Jesus shows up, and what does he do, man? He dies so that we can enter
Hmm.
back into marriage with God. I'm just like, "What?"
Yes.
That is
That
so crazy.
that clicked for me that day. And since then, it's like I bring it up all the time. It's like he really fulfilled the law. Like he really did this down to the letter, man. Every jot and tittle. It's just crazy. I believe that's in Romans where it speaks about that. It says, just as that law states, he divorced, and you guys couldn't be remarried again until the husband dies, and there he
Yeah.
is. And now he's in a place where he can't die again, right? Because
Yeah.
that same being that was dead then rose from the grave 3 days later, and again signifying just that you cannot be forgotten here. As long as you do what you're supposed to do and you stay involved in that and you're still with God, your husband can't die. You
And
know
the
what I mean?
the
So
the cool thing too, and I don't think a lot of Christians piece this together about the new covenant, which I think it's just profound. So it's a new and better covenant
mhm,
because Jesus is a perfect priest, so you no longer have a
right.
priest that needs to make atonement for themselves first. They don't have to
Yes.
do that. Jesus is perfect. He's in his glorified body, and now he's in a heavenly temple that will not
Yes.
perish, that will not be destroyed, so he's able to fulfill and carry out the duties of the high priest without any of the
Mhm.
flaws of being a human. So,
Right.
there was fault with that original covenant because there was fault with people and fault with the earthly temple system because it would be destroyed. And it's just like all of
Yes.
that is just profound, man.
It's just insane.
Yeah.
And they go into talking about how the Day of Atonement works, where you would put all the shame onto that animal. And oh my God, it's killing me, the name of that animal, what they call it. It's
Scapegoat.
Azazel. Yeah, the scapegoat Azazel. And they'd put it all on that goat and send it out in the wilderness, right? And the priest needed to do that, once a year. And all that stuff just being fulfilled is just incredible, man. I mean, uh, and no one ever told me this stuff, and if they did, maybe I just wasn't listening, right? I was just daydreaming in church, but, that discovery of all of that was just like, "Whoa," it's profound. I don't know, it's like, I because I'm into this stuff, right? Because I stream and I game and stuff. I try to keep up with certain, video games and gaming news and everything. And I always hear, some of these video essays about how deep this story is for this game or how deep this lore goes to this game. And every time I hear, it, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good, man. But I tell you what, nothing equates to that scripture, man.
Yeah.
It's the lore is crazy. It's so deep. And you still have like the whole intertestamental period, you know what I mean? You have in between the old and the new, where you have the whole Greek empire and the beginning of the Roman empire, and the downfall of the Persian empire in the beginning, right? There's still so much there that's just, I mean, it's just crazy how much is in that
Yeah.
Bible. And that first read through, you can get some good stuff. It's kind of like it sets up that knowledge base, and that second one just establishes it, and that third one goes deeper, and it's just crazy, man. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, and then we
It
get to
never gets old.
continue the story basically. We're part of this
Yeah,
story, man. We're
yeah,
we're part of the story of God, and we're in this season of our lives where we're going out into all the world and sharing the gospel and doing the
yeah.
work, and it that's incredible too.
It is. It is. It's wild because I was talking about this with somebody the other day, that where I'm at in my life now, it's just so strange because I was on fire during that time period, right? Like I said, from 18 into 23 or so, it's just like on fire, and then 24 and 25, it was like a volcano erupting. And then my wife gets pregnant, and it's like I start taking on so many more responsibilities that I didn't before. Home ownership and all these things that I just had never experienced before, right? I'd rented, but I'd never owned. And there's just a crazy difference that I
Oh yeah.
wasn't ready for, crazy difference. And now it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I can see why Paul says, that it's not a bad idea to not get married.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea because when you do this, this becomes your focus. This becomes what you think about,
Yeah.
and it's all I think about every day. It's like, even earlier today, I was like, I've got a second. Maybe I can pick up the Switch and play a game for a second. It's like, actually, you shouldn't do that because if you take care of this thing right now, then tomorrow on Saturday, you'll be able to spend more time with your baby and your wife. and that stuff just becomes your priority and it
Yep.
takes over. And I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm not sure yet. I still haven't quite figured it out. But I feel like I don't have as much time with the word and time in meditation and worship as I used to. And it really, truly, it's just unavailable now. You know what I mean? Perhaps, once the kids grow up and move out, maybe some of that time will come back, I guess. But it feels weird. You know what I mean? It feels like a whole 18 to 22 years or whatever before I can get back to that. It just feels weird, you know?
Yeah.
You're a dad. Maybe you know more than I do on it, but geez.
Yeah, I try to be very intentional about carving out time to do it. It's hard, it's hard most days during the week. I'm working. I get to work at 6 in the morning, so I'm up at like 5. And then I get to work. I will get my Bible readings in on the way to work. I'll just do the audio Bible, because that's the only
Yeah.
point in time where I'm like alone and I can actually listen. So that's where I capitalize. And then like on Saturday morning, I'll get up early and I'll do a men's group or whatever. My wife lets me,
Mhm.
make space for that. And I think it's important. So at least one day a week I'm gathering with other men and then during the car I'm listening. But it is hard, man. I totally understand it.
Yeah, it is. The audio Bible is one of the greatest inventions of all
Oh
time,
yeah.
man. I love it.
I mean,
I
that's
love
how
it.
most of them heard the Bible anyway. So we're just,
That's a good point.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a lot of them couldn't read,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's a really good point. And in some ways, it adds a different perspective to it. When you're reading it, you it's different than listening. I think reading it's better, yeah,
yeah.
but listening to it, sometimes you can really take your it's like a different level of attention span. I don't know. I'm not educated enough to articulate that, but sometimes it helps. You know what I mean? Just to sit back and just close your eyes and just listen instead, or get in an autopilot zone when you're driving and all you're just listening, and it's really nice, man. I've got my favorite one that I listen to. It's a King James version, and it's completely voice acted with this nice little audio track in the background. And sometimes the music swells when it's supposed to, and sometimes it gets kind of quiet, and sometimes it gets like a little creepy, like in
Yeah.
Job or whatever. You know what I mean? It adds a little of the theatrics to it, and it's really easy to listen to. It's a great audiobook. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I use Bible Is, I think is what it's called. Bible Is.
Is it an app?
Yeah, it's an app. It's pretty good.
Hmm.
Does the same thing. Has like
Yeah,
background music and different voice actors too. So you hear like different voices like for
exactly.
the
Yeah.
different character. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I don't know. It's one of those that hey, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I don't know who it was, but whoever it was, thank you. You're awesome. But yeah, it is a really cool experience to be able to have that. And just backing up and listening to it and just letting it play all day, it does something to you. And one thing you can definitely learn a thing or two because
Yeah.
I do a lot of driving for my work, and I'm in a lot of abandoned places a lot for my work. I'm in evicted units or evicted houses or et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not unusual for me to be able to squeeze in 8 hours of audio Bible, and you can learn a lot doing
Oh
that.
yeah.
I mean, a lot. It's really really cool. It's it's insane actually. And then you squeeze in other things. Like one of my biggest fears listening to the audio Bible is I'm scared it'll lose its weight. Like how your favorite show does, your favorite song does, you can overplay it. And so one of the things that I'll play in between time is that John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress audiobook. And man, that is such a good book, man. I don't know if you've ever read it or not, but
No, I
God,
read I read like a book a chapter book with my daughter called Little Pilgrim's Progress, but not the Pilgrim's
okay,
Progress book.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'm glad you told me about it. I'll have to pick that up for her to have my daughter because that's one of my favorite stories of all time. Is just I, I I think honestly, I don't think it was inspired, but man, that's close, man. I mean, just the lore and the levels and the symbolism and metaphors that are in there. It is a good movie. You're right, Woven with Gold. I'm glad you've seen that. Yeah, it's a great movie on YouTube, and it's free. Um, yeah, it's fantastic. But, John Bunyan, he was arrested because he refused to join the Church of England, right? And so they threw him in jail because at that time you had to join. And so he spent life in prison with the exception of certain holidays and seasons to go home and see his family. But while he spent his life in prison, he spent that time writing Pilgrim's Progress. And man, that's just a fantastic. that's one of those things when you read it, you're like, okay, this dude definitely knew his Bible. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? To create this almost Shakespearean style, character driven novel. Very good book. I highly recommend if you
Yeah,
guys haven't read or listened to it.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out, man.
The old English is tough. Yeah, you're right, Woven. It is. It's a little, yeah. It's whatever that was. I imagine if I had to guess 1620, I guess. I don't know. I could be off on that, but um yeah, fantastic. But I'll tell you what, Ryan, what I'll do is my wife has got the baby. I will go trade places with her so she can come in because her story is way cooler than mine and a lot more family friendly. And she can come in and tell her side, and I can take care of that baby
All
because
right,
she refuses to sleep tonight. So,
sounds good. Sorry,
all
man.
right,
I get
cool.
it, bro.
Oh yeah,
I
you know
totally
what's gonna
get
be
it.
funny is I'll find a way to get her to go to sleep. You know what I mean? And Connor's gonna be so angry. But if I don't make it back for whatever reason, man, I'll shake your hand through camera. Pleasure
Yeah,
to meet you.
yeah.
And I'm gonna go watch the baby while you do your testimony. She's chilling.
Cool.
Well, then I'm chilling. All right, Connor, your turn, baby.
I forgot to put the
We were talking about Pilgrim's
camera back
Progress. He
over,
told
but-
me that there's a children's version, like a mini Pilgrim's Progress for
Oh,
kids.
yeah?
Yeah.
Let me move the camera. I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's it is a chapter book, so it might not be ready for your 10-month-old, but
yeah.
they're like 4 or 5. I think it'll be
Okay.
good.
Yeah. No, that's what's up. That's I honestly I'd probably need to read. I got the reading skill level of a 10-year-old anyway, so that'll work out perfectly. Actually. All
Yeah.
right, here she comes. All right, Connie Rain.
Um, mine's not
Sorry, I was trying to get out your way.
mine's not super long or anything crazy. I was born and raised in the Jehovah's Witness organization. Um, and I didn't end up leaving until I was 18. So, well, closer to 19, but yeah, we were like deep in it. So I myself was a regular pioneers, what they are called. So I
Okay.
would spend back in the day 70 hours being that person that was knocking on everybody's door.
Which I gotta say, that is one thing I do kind of respect about the Jehovah's Witness is that there takes a boldness to be able to go do that. So
Yeah.
they are certainly not afraid to share what they believe, which I think, your everyday Christian could learn a thing or two from.
Right, yeah. And a lot of people will demonize those aspects of it once they're out. I can admire the zeal that those people have because
Yeah.
they happily go do it in whatever weather, rain, shine, snow, blistering heat. It's super humid in the summers
Yeah.
here. So it's like they'd always be out. We even did a lot of unassigned territory. I never did the big mission trips to other countries, but we did unassigned territory. So we'd go into like these like mountain towns where there's a couple of houses on a mountain and
Okay.
everybody's cooking meth and it's really scary.
Oh,
There's
wow.
shotguns and people are threatening you and it's crazy. Well, the it's really admirable that they will do that. I just wish the doctrine was a little bit more
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, I totally agree with that.
yeah. But I didn't really start to question things myself until in I think I was 14. What year was that?
Dude, what?
Two,
2011,
11 or
2013?
12? Maybe I was a little older. I think it was 2014. I wasn't 14. But they released the new Silver Bible and they were like, "Hey, we decided because we were enlightened that the Dead Sea Scrolls should be taken more into account. And so we've taken out an entire chapter. We took out a couple of random little things and verses. You won't notice, trust me. It's we'll tell you what we did and what we didn't and why. And we added God's name back in a bunch of times. Because that's what the Dead Sea Scrolls say. And it's already a translation. I didn't know this, but it's already kind of taken from a bunch of different things and just sort of like patchworked together like a little Bible quilt
Hmm.
to sort of suit what they wanted to say. So I don't know how much anybody knows about what they believe in, Jehovah's Witnesses, and what their Bible says, but they the main thing is essentially God and Jesus are not the same thing, and Jesus is just an archangel.
Yeah, they believe he
Um,
did don't they believe he's the Archangel Michael specifically?
yes,
Yeah,
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 exactly right.
that's where they severely lose me.
Yes, me too. Now, that I just kind of went along with it. I was a kid, I didn't know, but it just didn't sit right with me when I could see hundreds of people around me when they released this silver Bible just nodding and smiling, and they were so happy and so excited, and I was like, what the heck, you guys kept this meeting a secret and then sprung it on all of us and just put this little bow on top like we're supposed to be really happy. And I was kind of upset, but I couldn't say that I was upset because everybody else would have been like, that's crazy, you're a bad person, like, you need to get right with God, you need to study more, you need to figure it out. um so that was the first kind of thing that sort of started making me think differently. um and I want to be clear, I never didn't believe in God.
Yeah,
um but there was a time after I ended up leaving that I sort of looked at other things too. I was like, well, maybe God made this stuff, and maybe I specifically new agey beliefs like law of attraction and crystals and stars and stuff. I was like, well, maybe there's something to it. And there was a lady that sort of she was so excited when I brought it up. She was like, I will teach you all about that
mm,
stuff and I'll mentor you. And I've never had anybody do that. So I was like, well, okay, like, sure, I'll listen to you. I realized she was a banana split sundae with extra nuts.
oh,
And
yeah.
she was a little wild. She was getting aliens to name her chickens. She was weird. But
Yeah,
it
that's,
just,
that's
yeah.
demonic. Yeah,
Yeah, out there.
like
Pretty
hardcore.
out there. She was
Yeah.
she was a little wild. But then I was like, okay, well, that there's nothing to this either. I never stopped praying, and I was like, hey, like, if I'm doing something wrong, like, I'm really sorry. I don't know what I'm doing because I've been taught my whole life this is the truth. This is the only truth. All other Christians, Catholics, other religions, anybody else who believes in God, they're doing it wrong. They're not going to make it into the new system, and they won't get resurrected and crazy stuff. So I was like, well, what is the truth? If this isn't true, and a lot of the time when people leave the organization, they they just scrap all of it. They're like, no God, no nothing. I'm just gonna do my own thing, or I'm gonna be an atheist, or I'm gonna be a spiritualist, or something else just entirely.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way because I felt like I truly did have a relationship with him, and I didn't want to give that up. That was like my last thing keeping me here on earth, because I had also, part of why I left was I went through a bit of a rough time, I guess, mentally. Teenage girl stuff, but I ended up going to residential treatment for like eating disorders and
Mhm.
things like that. And when I came back, I got in trouble. They were like, we're so glad you're okay, but you shouldn't have had to do that. There must be something wrong with you, and you don't have a good relationship with God, and we need to take your privileges away. And it's just, you're not supposed to have any kind of depression. You're not supposed to struggle with any of these things. So you really need to repent for it right here and now. It was just me in a room with two men, two elders,
Mm.
and they were being pretty harsh about it. So I left that feeling like I'm not going back there. Like, I can't. When I told my family, they were all like, oh, thank God. Because we were already one foot out the door. We were barely going anyway. But I was pretty heavily into it.
Hmm.
So they were kind of sticking around for me. Um, and then after I left too, I started looking into I got interested in stuff like true crime and cults and like the Jonestowns and the
Yeah.
Scientologies and the Manson families of the world. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Um, I know it doesn't technically fit into the exact made up definition of a cult, but this is kind of like a diet cult. Um,
Yeah. Diet cult.
yeah. Yeah, so I started questioning everything about it, and I had to get away from it. I had to get out of there, and they tried really, really hard to get me back, but I just ignored everybody, and I kept going down my own path, and it strayed a couple of times, but anytime it did, it went horribly wrong. Looking into the new age stuff or trying to get into something that I shouldn't have been into, and he always brought me back and saved me from a lot of things. And so I started just praying more and more and more, and
Yeah.
I said, I don't know what following you looks like, because I know enough about where I grew up to know that's wrong, but I also grew up learning a lot about these other things to know that there's something wrong with most denominations.
Yeah.
There's something about it that's not exactly right. So, kind of like Bronson, I was like, I'm just gonna start from the beginning. I'm just gonna read the Bible. And then I found out that the Holy Spirit's actually gonna tell me what it means, that I don't need a bunch of elders on a stage telling me what it means.
Yeah.
That you don't need it's fine to have pastors and friends and mentors and leaders and stuff like that, but you don't need that to understand your relationship with him, what he's trying to tell you through the book.
Yeah.
And then a couple months later I met Bronson, and he was we went and got some cookout milkshakes, and we started talking and talking and talking, and talked a lot about how what we believed in and the Bible and things like that. And I was like, I I think I want to keep studying with this guy because we seem to have the same view on things. And I was like, just as friends, of course. That's it. But that's really when I was like, okay, no turning back, no looking anywhere else, no, if there's something that seems fishy, it's probably a fish, and we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
So that's basically my whole story, because ever since then I've been trucking along, and we've done research together, and I've watched him study the word and be a really good um, head of the household spiritually. And I was like, okay, well, now I understand why I should listen to a man, because he's actually worth something.
Yeah.
Um, he's not just telling me what to do, or uh, not actually reading the Bible himself. He was really deep into it, to the point where I was inspired to be listening to the audio Bible all the time too.
Yeah.
Um, he was a little rude about it. Sometimes he'd come home and he'd be like, "Are you watching Netflix? I just listened to the audio Bible for like 10 hours. Like, what are you doing with your life? That's garbage." And I was like, "Oh, okay. My bad. Let me just open up my little Bible app and start going, I guess." But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of fun to have somebody to do it with, because I don't know how well exactly I would have been able to stick to it
Yeah.
by myself.
No doubt. And that's something that is very, very key is, when you do this stuff by yourself, there's something special to it. You know what I mean? Like you develop this relationship and it's kind of like this solo story and everything's great, but it's hard sometimes. It's hard. But when you have somebody to go through it with you,
Yeah.
walk this path out with you, I don't know. It's like every day I couldn't wait. You know what I mean? I'd go to work and I'd be like, dude, when I get off of work, me and Connor, we're going to go hang out. And she stuck with me through that whole 2020 gap when there was just nothing left and no
Yeah.
money or anything like that. And
But I lost everything too at the
yeah,
same
she's a
time.
dance
So.
instructor. You know what I mean? So that's really kind of
Oh,
how we
you
met
guys
through
got the
martial arts.
double whammy with COVID. Dang, that's
Yeah, it was
rough.
pretty rough, man. Yeah, it was pretty rough. And but honestly, it was so cool because, we didn't have a whole lot, but we had each other and we made some things work and, climbed back over the couple of years, just hard work and dedication and everything. But we would just hang out in my car. You know what I mean? I had a little Honda Accord. It was beat up. I ran it off the road. It's one of the first times in my life I ever drove sober, ever, and I wrecked it. It was unbelievable. And so I wrecked that Honda Accord, and we'd sit in that thing, and we'd go to a gas station, get just some little snacks or whatever, and we'd sit in that car for hours,
Yeah.
man, from 6 p.m. to 11 o'clock at night. Just sit there and we'd listen to audio Bible, or we were learning about the Bible or history and Babylonian captivity and Cyrus and Darius, and you're just learning. It was so cool.
Well, and we sort of together adopted certain beliefs and ways of living our lives that differed so much from his family, my family, and everybody else. And they were like, "Oh, you're crazy. That's stupid. You're kind of, ruining the vibe a little bit because you won't celebrate certain holidays with us and you want to do your own weird Jewish holidays
Are you guys?
instead." And it's
Can I
like,
can I ask you? Do you guys like celebrate like the feast days and
Yeah, we do.
and Shabbat?
Yeah,
we do,
Yeah.
we every Saturday we
This is awesome
stay home, we don't
because
spend money.
so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are you guys Torah observant?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
But
Oh,
Torah
you're
is
so
Torah.
rare.
I knew it. I
You're
knew
so
it.
rare.
When you started listening, when you started quoting things from Hebrews and you started saying certain things, it's like, I bet you.
The way you
$1.
talked about Hebrews, I was like, if he is not Torah observant, I know that he will be because of the way that he's making those. There's no way that you make that.
You don't make those connections.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. When you were talking about Jesus's death and remarriage, I was like, okay, that's so cool. Yeah, man, no doubt. Yeah. So we started doing that many, many years ago. And one of our first Passovers, we were sitting inside of her dance studio, and all we had at the time was this little George Foreman grill. And so we went to the store, we got some meat, and we just did our own little Passover together. And now every year we make a big thing out of it. We invite people over.
Yeah.
We have she makes homemade unleavened bread. And last year we decided to actually do lamb for the first time, and our bitter herbs and everything.
That's so cool, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
I'm
sweet,
excited, man. I'm like genuinely now geeking out. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes.
me too. Yeah, me too. That's pretty sweet, man.
Yay.
Yeah, that's
pretty
so
sweet.
cool. Yeah, we celebrated, we've been celebrating Passover for the past couple of years, but like it's getting bigger and bigger every year, which is
Yeah,
exciting.
that's
I'm bummed. I normally go up to PA and get together with my buddies for Sukkot, but it's like my wife is very pregnant right now, so it's just very difficult.
no doubt. Yeah, that's one thing we're excited about this year because it'll be our daughter's first time to do a Sukkot, so it's pretty sweet.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, we gotta modify it because she's still so little. But
Yeah. One thing we do a little different every year is I've always had a hard time figuring out calendars. I know everybody does. And so, and so it's always hard with friends and everything because, like, if you do know somebody that does it, they're doing it on a different week and you've already bought tickets or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's always kind of a pain to try to figure out that whole calendar thing. But it's so cool to see somebody else that's doing that, man. It's so sweet.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
dude, that's
Sweet.
awesome. That is awesome, man. So definitely a 100% God thing, because
Yeah.
it's a little lonely too, being like Torah observant,
Yes.
because
For
like
sure.
Sure
you
is.
probably know you get into you've probably gotten into the fights and
Mhm.
people getting really frustrated. Yeah, it's been combative with Christians because you're like, no, I just
Yeah.
want to do things the way that God tells me to do them.
That's it, man.
That's it. I just want to follow what He's telling me to do.
That's it.
The
That's it.
biggest thing for my family was when we stopped eating certain things that we didn't want to eat anymore. They were like, I'm gonna eat my yummy unclean meats, and it's like, go right ahead, dude.
Yeah,
I don't
it's crazy because, like,
care.
and I was when I first started I used to listen to this guy's name was John Hall, and he always said, when you start off, don't go beating off the Torah drum. And I was like, yeah, well, when I first started, I was beating the Torah drum. Everywhere I went, I was like, dude, you need to check this out. You need to look at this. Blah, blah, blah. Leviticus 23, read it now. And,
We were young.
yeah, I was young. But over the years, a lot of that has changed. You know what I mean? So now it's like, look, I'm just happy that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you have a relationship with Christ. And, our biggest thing, like when we started Souly Switch, was all I want is to provoke people to read the Bible.
Yeah.
And if you will read your Bible, whether it's an audio Bible, your app, whatever, I have without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that you will get closer to Christ. Whatever that looks
Yeah.
like is beyond me. Your route's going to be different than mine, but I'm not here to tell you how to live, what to do, what holidays to observe, what meats to eat, how to act, or whatever. I'm going to live my life by my
Yeah.
standards as for me and my house. And if I can provoke at least one person to open up their Bible, dude, that's wow.
Yeah,
You know
we
what I
all
And
mean?
you do
start
too.
somewhere, It's like I started, I was going, I was a pastor at a, Sunday church, I did that thing. And actually, the Sabbath is actually what made me step down from ministry, actually, because I realized
Really?
I'm like, oh man, I'm like leading these people, and I really actually have no idea what I'm talking about. Like I have no clue. If I got
Yeah.
this wrong, that's to me now very, very obvious. It's like, what else do I have wrong? What else bad
Yeah.
doctrine do I gotta take care of? So it's like I
Right.
totally step back from it because I realize like, oh man, I'm leading people to practice lawlessness. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I was like, I can't have this on my conscience. Like I have to step away from it.
Good for you.
And I did, now I'm feeling like the Lord is kind of calling me back to ministry, which is why I started doing this,
That's
and
awesome.
getting involved and using my voice a little bit more to speak up about the things of God. But yeah, it's really cool, man. I can't tell you how excited I am to actually be talking to another, Torah observant couple. It's awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's amazing, man. I sometimes I look at my daughter and I'm like, "Dude, you'll never, you know what I mean? You'll never experience those things, and this is just going to be your lifestyle as long as you choose to live it this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I always think that's just so cool, man. That it's very alternative. It's very different. Um,
That's such a blessing.
yeah, it's a big blessing, because it's not, for a while there, like when I was very argumentative with people, they were calling me legalistic and, et cetera. And in some ways I kind of was when I first started because I just didn't know any better. But when
Yeah.
I had that moment I was telling you about in that bathroom stall where I realized the whole grace thing, I was like, oh my goodness gracious, everything just started to click so beautifully, and everything just started to make sense that I just hadn't made sense before. And that's really when I started to kind of change my attitude towards certain things. It's like, man, if you would just read that Bible and let the Holy Spirit be your one and only teacher,
Yeah.
you wherever you end up going, it's going to be the right direction.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty sweet, man. So how did you you said you were in ministry because I thought you were a pastor. When Connor asked me, she was like, who is this dude? I was like, well, I think he's a pastor, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
So how
I
did that work
was
for you?
dude, I was, to make a very long story short, I was an atheist till I was like 18 years old. I had
Oh,
this,
okay. Yeah.
Saul to Paul conversion experience where I felt God tell me that
Wow.
he loved me and that I was supposed to be
Wow.
a writer. And I just started, yeah, started changing my life, man. And I ended up meeting this girl that told me about Jesus, and at this time, I believed God existed, but I didn't believe He was the God of the Bible. Like I didn't believe
Mhm.
it. As like there was one point where I was like, yeah, I'm never reading that disgusting book. Like I'm just not reading it. Um, and but I met this girl, and she's telling me about Jesus, and the only way that she'd date me is if I went to church. I'm like, she's pretty cute. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
to church. you know and she was
Yeah.
different. It's like I grew up in a
Mhm.
county where it was like girls were very loose, to put it mildly, and it was hard to find a wholesome girl.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York originally.
Okay.
Yeah. So um so I found her, and she's like this gem. So I was like, let me give church a shot. I had taken the semester off of college too because I wanted to find God. I'm like, all right, God, I believe you're real, but who are you? Like I need to know who you are. And then I meet this girl who tells me about Jesus. And I sit in this church service for a couple weeks and I realize like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. It's him. And I was still doubting myself a little bit. I was in this worship session and I'm just kind of sitting back watching like what's happening here, Lord? And I'm thinking in my head, am I in the right place? And someone puts their hand on my shoulder and as I'm thinking this, he says, "You're in the right place." I'm like, okay. All right.
Oh
All right.
snap!
And the rest was history, dude. I was just reading the
Whoa.
Bible, eating it up, man. I ended up going to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, studying the Bible there, getting my degree in ministry and leadership, and then I got plugged into the church. I got a job for the church as a youth pastor. Then I planted my own church. And then while I was planting my own church, my buddy starts hitting me on the Sabbath. And I'm like, I was open to it. He tells
Yeah.
me something, like is scriptural and he points it to me. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with what scripture says. And I started reading the scriptures and I'm like, oh, it really
Yeah.
hasn't changed. It's still applicable. It's still the Sabbath is still Saturday, and it's the only commandment he tells us to remember. We've all forgotten. It hit me that I was not living my life the way that I should have. And I ended up stepping away from the church, and
Right.
at least pastoring, and I turned it over to him, which by the way, he's still pastoring it to this day, and he's really done an
Wow.
incredible job leading these people to uh, actually practice the Bible, I believe, the way the early church did, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
That's insane.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, and he's the person I'll go celebrate Sukkot with. So that's really cool. Now it's finding a community, because I ended up moving from New York, and now it's finding a community down here and building that all out and kind of figuring that out.
Mhm.
But it's been an awesome journey, man. I love it.
It sounds like it. That's
That's
incredible.
amazing. The little you're in the right place.
Yeah,
The
that's
little
touching.
chills moment.
Yeah, that's something else there.
That's so
One of our
cool.
guys on our Twitch chat was asking, is it New York or New York City?
Upstate New York.
Okay. Is it like
Yeah.
Buffalo-ish?
Beautiful areas.
It's like I would say
You don't have to
as
say.
far not as far north, but 2 hours
Okay.
north of New York City.
Yeah, I
Okay.
used to drive up to Buffalo every year for a couple years to get my teacher certifications, and it was like 13 hours by myself driving. So
We're in North Carolina.
yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. You might not be very far from me. We'll
Okay.
we'll talk offline. I'm in South Carolina now, so
Nice. Okay,
No
cool, cool.
Yeah.
That's where my mom
way.
lives.
yeah. I was
Very
actually up in
cool.
Asheville
Yeah.
during
During the flood.
I was doing disaster relief over there, so it's like 5
Thank you.
hours from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you for
thanks.
doing that, man. That's awesome.
It'd be really cool if we were close enough to get together one day. Because
Dude,
Yeah.
can you imagine
so
like a
awesome
Sukkot
meeting
type
you.
of thing?
Yeah.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah. I mean,
That'd be
there's
so
a
sick.
couple places that go big in South
Really?
Carolina and that I would like to link up with. I don't think this year's going to be an option, but in the future,
Yeah.
I definitely want to go to some of their events too, because there's a few of them out over here.
We got really close to doing one year. There's there's a pretty big, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess a community of people that stick around, like the Now You See TV group,
Yeah,
and they we wanted to go, we just never did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We just
And now
never
we've
did.
just kind of distanced from them. Nothing against them. We just sort of went separately.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
The
So,
nearest
yeah.
group to me though is like it's like an hour and a half away, and I'm like, dang.
That's
Okay.
not too bad.
Yeah, it's
That'd
still
be really cool.
yeah. It's cool though. I'm grateful for where I'm at right now, and I'm grateful for you guys, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, back at you, man. This is really, really cool. That the movement really got a crazy resurgence somewhere around like 2015, and and then just kept going and going and going, and it's incredible, man. I mean, it's really cool. And what I've noticed really since like 2020 or so is that a lot more people these days are just more interested in their faith. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Some people get more into their own, denominational theology, which whatever, it's not my cup of tea. But as long as people are just continuing to dig deeper into their
Yeah.
faith, man, I'm pretty happy
Well,
about
we all
that.
had time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in
well,
2020,
yeah, that's
they were like,
true.
"Well, I might as well pray.
Yeah.
I might as well read
Yeah.
the Bible
Yeah,
now."
Yeah.
that's true,
No, for
man.
sure. We had nothing but time then. So
That's
yeah.
Hmm.
true. Well, that is something special. So, how's the book coming?
It's coming, man. It's coming. You know, I got like 16 chapters for the one book. So my strategy for writing the book is actually kind of interesting. I
Okay.
just am telling my daughter bits of the story every night so that I can build it and figure things
That's
out. So,
right. I
and
remember you telling me that. Yeah.
yeah, she loves it, man. So it's been
That's
going
so
good.
cool, dude.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I just love that so much, man. That is so cool. Well, I hope that goes really well for you. A brother of mine wants to write a book. I don't exactly remember how he wants to go about it, but he wants to take it kind of off of like, if you want to call it like the mythos, if you will, that's like given in like First Enoch. He wants to kind of take that and wrap it into some like geographical stuff and make kind of like this fantasy fiction tale out of it.
That'd be
And
cool. That'd be the book to do it with, man. It's a sick book.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, of all the books to do it with, you have a lot of characters to work with there. So I
That's
like to
cool.
see stuff like that happen, man.
Yeah.
That's one of our, so like I said, our primary mission with Souly Switch was to get people to open up their Bibles. You know what I mean? Just provoke you to read your Bible. If I can say some crazy verse that you've never heard before, I would love to use that crazy verse you've never heard before so that you can try to go figure it out somewhere, you know. But our second goal is to promote Christian media. So we play a lot of Christian video games. We try to lift up any Christian streamer we can find out there. We try to lift them up
Yeah.
and share their platform with other people. Because I think we're pretty cool, but most people might not. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that might just not rock with us or our sense of humor, or the way we do things. And so I try to get as many Christian streamers as I can out there so that people can rock with you and people can do some things. So
Yeah. Well, you got one
we've got
more,
a
bro,
couple.
because
Hey,
huge
that's
fan.
what's up, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've
That's
had a
awesome.
couple of our friends on here. I think it's about 7 now. Since we started streaming on Twitch, we got about 7 people over to Rumble. Some of them are creators, some of them are just audience members. But it's really cool, man. We've had a little bit of success and having Christian game developers come onto the show and interview, and they've come in the chat and just promoting Christian media. I think is cool. I
Yeah.
think in this day and age that movies, books, anime,
We need more
manga,
of
comic
it. And I think
books.
there's an appetite for it, bro.
Yes.
I really
Oh
do. I
yeah.
believe there's an appetite for it. And
Oh yeah.
it's definitely well needed. Hey, give me 1 second. I just gotta step out for a minute. Give me
Yeah,
one
you're fine.
moment.
Go ahead, do your thing. You're totally cool, man. really cool to have that.
All right.
Ryan, are you on Twitch or are you just on Rumble?
I'm on Twitch.
Oh, you are?
I
Oh,
don't really
really?
I don't really pay any too much attention to it. I just kind of passively. It
What's your
should
username?
RCAM_TV.
Cool. I think a lot of our Twitch people
There
would
you are. Okay, cool. Hold on.
would just love your streams.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. I gotta make sure I'm following you guys.
All right,
Yes,
cool.
we just gave you a shout out. So if you're not on there,
There you go. Yeah.
then
Well,
go
we're
ahead.
gonna keep that up too, because there's a lot over here, man. There's hundreds and hundreds, and there's some really good people over here. A lot of people have the heart for the Lord. We started on Twitch, like I said. Rumble was just a place for us to
Yeah.
store our VODs. You know what I mean?
But we've grown to really like the people we have met
Yeah.
on Rumble.
Yeah.
Yeah, the community on
didn't
Rumble
really-
is really good. Twitch, I like Twitch a lot. You know, don't get me wrong. It's been very very difficult for me to build an audience over there. Where Rumble,
No doubt.
I've been able to get really connected with the community on Rumble. So
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. For Twitch, we found success in meeting Christians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just started looking up Christian, everything Christian. And I mean, geez, there's dozens and dozens of Christian streamers, and
I had no idea. I thought we were the only ones.
I thought I'd come up with this really novel idea. I was like, I'm gonna get on Twitch and we're gonna do Christian stuff, and no one's ever thought of that before because I'm just so smart. And here we are. There's tons of them on here, man. They're really, really cool. So
yeah, I gotta get in their streams, man, and just check some out because I don't.
We'll start shouting you out. That's what we're gonna do. We'll start shouting you out in our chats and see if that'll help.
Gotten a lot of really good friends. But we've made some really good friends on Rumble and made another one tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I'm still mind blown, honestly, because
I know, right?
Yeah, and it's just so funny, the context clues too. Like just certain things you said, I'm like, is he? He probably is. He probably is.
I know it. That's so funny. Yeah, you started talking about Hebrews a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I'm willing to bet. And then when you mentioned the whole marriage covenant, most people, like when you hear them say like, okay, so God divorces Israel, right? As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, he knows more than I thought he knows. Okay, this means he's on board, you know?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those reels where it's like when you're trying to figure out what your new friends' like political affiliations are, and you drop some keywords and you just watch them?
Right.
It feels like that when I'm like talking to other Christians. I'm like, so
right.
Saturdays, am I right? Just nothing all day.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it's like. Yeah, I found a pretty good community too of some Torah observant believers on TikTok. Actually, is where I started seeing like a lot of getting exposed to a lot of it, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is cool.
I need to be on there more.
You know who's Torah observant? I don't know if you follow him, Bryson Gray on Twitter.
Oh, is he really? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah. So when I first started content creation, it wasn't Souly Switch. I was doing this cover to cover Bible commentary, chapter by chapter, with my brother, and he introduced me to Bryson Gray. We did a little reaction to one of his videos. I figured he was, but I wasn't sure. You know, he's got that attitude.
He is super zealous too, man. Like he is. Boom, he's just lays it on thick, bro. He's really cool.
I like Bryson. I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people have like music playing in their stream and they like request a song, I'll throw Bryson Gray in there just to see what happens. You know?
Yeah. Me and my wife met him this year. We went to one of his concerts. Really nice guy too in person. Yeah.
Really?
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and he did Hebrew Fest. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. There's like this.
No.
Yeah, every year they have this festival where a bunch of Torah observant people come together, and he was there, and he put on a concert there. He linked up with my buddy in New York. So I'm like, oh, you met him? I was like, that's cool. So it's like, I don't know. I just see God like kind of bringing a whole bunch of people together. It's pretty sick.
Wow.
TwitchCon, ReachCon, HopeCon, Hebrew Fest. We've got a lot of stuff
we got
to do
some
next
stuff
year.
to do. Yeah. That sounds
Are you guys going to
great,
TwitchCon?
Man. No, Lord, no. Yeah.
Our baby's still so little. I can't do any of those. And then they have a Twitch
like a
It
Christian streamer thing. They have
yeah.
HopeCon and ReachCon,
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's
it's for
where
cool.
all
Christian Twitch
the Christian
streamers.
streamers get together and do
Yeah.
something. One's in Florida, and I think the other one's in Texas.
Yeah, I
We
can't
can't
do
do
it.
it. Our baby's just too little.
Maybe in a couple years
I get
when
it.
she's bigger.
I totally understand it. Well, guys, I don't want to keep you too long. And my wife just got home, so I want to go
Cool.
spend some time with the family. But I do appreciate you guys coming on the show, and we'll have to do
Oh
something
man,
again
for
sometime
sure.
We
because
have to,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your story. And now I just feel like I have like another, brother and sister in arms, and
No
that's
doubt,
pretty sick.
Absolutely.
And
it is.
definitely got me excited. So I appreciate you guys.
That's
Yeah.
what's up, man. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks for
having us
having
on your show,
us.
man. It's a pleasure. I really, really appreciate you. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening with
Yeah.
your wife and your kids, man. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, and DMS, I want to know how close we are.
Yeah, I definitely will DM you. Do you both? I have just Souly Switch on. Do you guys have? Do you both use that same account?
I use the Twitter. She uses the Discord.
Okay.
That's basically how that works.
Okay.
Well, you're usually gonna get him because I use my personal accounts on a lot of things, but I run the Souly Switch Instagram, which is why there's nothing on there. But but if there's something interesting, he'll show me.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
message you guys on Twitter.
Cool.
That'll work best, and we'll
Perfect.
figure something out. All right.
That's what's up. All right,
Awesome.
man. Well, have a great rest
Thank
of your night.
you.
Enjoy
Yeah.
your
Have a good night,
weekend. We'll see you
guys.
later. Thank you.